All right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome back. Thirsty Thursday number 6. Tonight we're talking Millennial Madness, and we have some awesome guests here tonight. Thanks, Chief. Here we go. We're going to get started. Cheers, everyone. I'm Ben Waples, volunteer captain, the Salisbury Fire Department in Salisbury, Maryland. Been here for about 13 years. And I've worked with Trevor and Bobby McGee in Ocean City when I was down there part-time before Trevor decided he was going to peace out and leave us. And then I left Bobby. I was a quitter. So that's my story. Let's kick it over to Trevor and see what he's got to say.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate everybody being here on the panel tonight. I'm Trevor Steedman. I used to work with Bobby and Ben back up in Ocean City, Maryland. And I've said this before, there's a state law in Maryland that says when you retire from the fire department, you must move to Florida. So I complied. And I now have a job down here working in South Florida. I've had the privilege of actually working with everybody on this panel tonight, either directly on the rig or through training and education. So this is a group of people that I'm really excited to be able to lend their voice to the chorus of what's going on here in the fire service. And, I'll save the rest of it for when we get started, but now I'll kick it over to Chief Bobby Halton.
I'm Bobby Halton. I'm a firefighter, volunteer out in Limestone, Oklahoma, Fire Protection District number 2. We have the distinct pleasure of protecting Garth Brooks' home, and he's a local country music artist. Might have heard of him. You can tell his place because he's got radial tires on top of his double wide. So, just to show off. I guess he sold a couple of songs. So we're out here just north of Tulsa, Oklahoma. And my full-time gig, I'm a retired career firefighter. And my full-time gig is running fire engineering, fire apparatus emergency equipment, the Journal of Emergency Medical Services, EMS Today, FDIC, and Fire Engineering Magazine. And the United Fire Conference.
Well, thanks, Bobby. Bobby McGee here from the small state of Delaware. I work in Ocean City, Maryland, lieutenant there. Take care of fire training and things like that. Been in the fire service for about 32 years. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. Doing so much training. I think sometimes our younger members don't get a fair shake at everything. This is a good conversation to have for all of us. So looking forward to the conversation. Nick?
Evening, everyone. I'm one of those younger guys. Nik Kotocavage. I work career fire department down here in South Florida. Had the pleasure of working for Chief Steedman for a few years. Volunteered a couple of years, and it's been 5 years I've had time in the fire service. I'm looking forward to this podcast, and I'll turn it over to Will.
Will Holt. I live down here in southeast Kansas. I work for the Olathe Fire Department. We have 8 stations with 9 companies. Serve about 150,000 people approximately. I currently ride Rescue 51A, the best company in the city, and I just want to say that it's a pleasure and honor to be here with you gentlemen today.
Awesome. Welcome. So thanks. Welcome, everybody. Just before, so typically I would kind of run the direction of the conversation for tonight. However, we're going to do something a little different. And before I kick it over to Trevor, I've been informed that this weekend is quite a milestone for Trevor. So happy birthday, Chief.
Thank you. Let me give the stink eye to my wife real quick.
I don't know what you're talking about. There was no pre-conversations or anything about that prior to that. So happy birthday. Let's kick it back to Bobby real quick. Bobby Halton so you can talk about FDIC and the United Fire Conference.
No, real quick, FDIC 2020, due to the pandemic, has been canceled officially. But what we're going to do is we're going to roll the whole cadre of folks, all the classes that were scheduled. We're going to roll it over to 2021. So the keynoters are going to stay the same and all of that. And then, folks can't be there. We'll obviously fill them in. So we will be looking for some new presentations. We're going to be expanding a little bit, but we're still going to have the same 211 classrooms. We're going to have 90 workshops. We're going to have 27 hands-on training evolutions. So we're going to have 590 of your favorite instructors out there in Indianapolis in 2021. And it should be awesome. And we'll try to put in a couple of new surprises. Obviously, we're gonna blow it up big time because it's the first time in the history of FDIC, which was founded in 1928, that it's ever been canceled. World Wars didn't do it. Vietnam War didn't do it. Korea War didn't do it. It went on through everything. It went on through, actually, I think we were counting the other day, 26 other pandemics didn't affect it, including the pandemic of 1957, the pandemic of 1969, which almost 180,000 Americans lost their lives, and 2.5 million worldwide. That didn't get it, but this one did. So we're going to roll it over, and then we're going to have a celebration in September in the great city of Indianapolis. It's September 22nd through 24th. We're going to have the United Fire Conference. We're inviting everybody. It's for all ranks. It's for all ages. We've got some of the usual suspects, a bunch of new people. We're going to have lessons learned from the COVID thing. We've got a few docs who agreed to come and talk. We've got, great, names in the fire service are going to be there, from Goldfeder, Lasky, Salka, Fields, Roden, McCormick, the usual suspects. They're all going to be there. And then a bunch of up and coming superstars that are going to show us old farts how to get it done correctly this time. And so it's going to be a great time, huge celebration. The IFD is going to roll up red carpet. The union's already lining up some parties. There's a unity celebration being planned. And half of the revenue from the show is going to be split between the NFFF and Tunnels to Towers Foundation. And if you don't know what Tunnels to Towers is, that's the Stephen Stiller Foundation. And what they do, his brother Frank, who is a cop, he runs it, and they buy out the mortgages when one of our brothers or sisters get killed in the line of duty. Military, cops, and firefighters. They pay for the mortgage. So you guys all know the terrible story up there in Maryland where we lost a firefighter tragically last year. He was struck in Hanover. Within weeks, his widow, who spoke for us at FDIC, she's coming back next year, her mortgage was paid off within weeks. And so you can't find a better group of people. So them and the NFFF they just do God's work. I mean, the memorial every year, they take care of widows and orphans. The NFFF has so many programs, and people really need to take a hard look at the NFFF. That's a great organization. They do so much more than people know of. It's not just fair fund. They do a lot of great things too. So it's just going to be no hot training. It's going to be all sit on your ass training. It's what we call SWAT. We have hot and SWAT. So it's all sit on your ass training, but it's great training, 90-minute classrooms, a great exhibition hall has been put together. People are going to be there. Really hope you can make it. We're gonna blow the doors off. We're gonna maybe when no one's looking, shake hands. So, and who knows where we'll be by then, right? Currently, we're planning for all the current restrictions and rules and regs, but things are moving so quickly. That I don't know where we'll be. I don't know what all the rules will be then. But we're going to follow all of them, and we're firefighters, but we'll be as rogue as we possibly can without being illegal. So,
push the limits.
Maybe there may be some beverages, out there, hopefully. But please come. Oh, and it's only $200. The whole fee is $200, and half of that is going to Tunnels to Towers and the NFFF. So please come, and I hope to see you all there. It's online. Go to UnitedFireConference.com and please love to see you. Thanks. Sorry for the shameless pitch.
Oh, it's all good, Chief. Thank you, and thanks for joining us. For you and Nick and Will, we really appreciate you guys coming on. So, Trevor, here you go, man. All yours.
All right, brother. Again, thanks, Chief Halton. Appreciate it. And if I can make one small suggestion, maybe in deference to FDIC, just so we don't completely miss out, maybe we could have a networking one morning where we all get up at 5 o'clock. We wait for about an hour in the marshaling area, have some coffee, and then we just network for whatever the length of the bus ride would be to the hot training site. So this is my first year that it's, since actually it moved to Indianapolis that I've missed it. And but again, we understand, the why behind it, which is obviously for the safety and security of all of our members and the people who attend. I mean, it is truly the world's largest firefighter training conference. So with that being said, it's definitely going to be missed, but not forgotten. And thank you for trying to put something and giving us some semblance of normalcy. And the National Fallen Firefighters has been an organization that is very near and dear to our hearts back in Maryland. Our Fools chapter, as all you guys here have been staunch supporters of the Fools over the years. We did fundraisers throughout the year for them. So by all means, we get a chance, let's support a great cause. Real quick, I want to be able to get to the folks that we brought on tonight, which is our millennials. And I got to tell you, I've got to make a confession. There was a point in time that I didn't like you guys, not you on the screen, but in general, because let's face it, let's talk about the rites of passage. There is no generation of firefighters who's ever going to be as good or work as hard as the one previous to them. And I've been on this job now for 33 years. I'm very proud of that longevity, but I am still a flaming idiot to the people who came on before me. And I couldn't, pour piss out of a boot with directions on the heel, according to them, probably still. And that's kind of the rite of passage we go through. But as time went on, we started to really look at this new generation of millennials and go, oh gosh, they don't have a work ethic. They don't appreciate the job. It's not like when I came in, I had 3/4 boots and long coats, and you guys have the best gear in the world, and you have it so easy. So as we started to go forward, it went beyond that rite of passage where we gave a hard time to this new generation. But this new generation had access to things that we never had. They had information. They were tech savvy. They were educated. And we had so many firefighters who said, hey, yeah, I don't need that education. I don't need this training. I know what I need to know. And you can't teach what I know. Okay, well, that might be true to a certain extent. But then we started looking, and Chief Halton, I've got to give you a lot of credit on this. There's things and people who've swayed me in my opinion. And over the years, I work with Ben directly. And probably one of the last major fires I was on before I retired from Ocean City, Ben was my chauffeur on a building fire, pretty good snot slinging event. And we had a mayday. We had a lot of people pulled from the building. And this guy held his own. I had a lot of respect for him before that call and had even more afterwards. And then I had a chance to work with Nick. And Nick, you never work for me, you work with me. Get that straight, soup sandwich. Nick's one of my favorite people. I'm very proud that he actually combed his hair. Thank you for not using a shoe to comb your hair tonight. But I work with Nick. It's like, wow, if only everybody was like Nick. And I had a chance to do some teaching with Will and came up with him out in Wichita Hot. And one of the things that really pushed me over, I was teaching a class several years ago out of Wichita Hot with Bobby. The McGee Bobby, not the Halton Bobby. And I made a comment during class, just an arbitrary comment, and it was actually in support of some of our younger members and mentoring and trying to coach these people. And there was the audience participation part, and I was shocked because someone actually participated. And there was this young member who goes, I was just in a class down the hall, and all the instructor did was run down millennials, and I felt like I was the worst person in the world. And I said, well, what have you done not to be that guy? Because I have a lot of you guys that I'm dealing with right now too. So when I got to know you guys better and better, I said, wow, there's some hope. And then I realized there's more of you than less of you, but there's always that guy who kind of makes the bad example. Just like my generation, we had the bad examples. And then, I've known Chief Halton for a long time. We've got to know him over the years, especially through FDIC and fire engineering. And he was given a presentation after I came down here to South Florida. And it was just an arbitrary comment during a presentation when he talked about the young folks and the next generations. And Chief, I'm going to put you on the spot for a minute, but he said, we talk about millennials. And I'm paraphrasing you. So if I don't do you justice, please correct me. But he said, right now there's millennials who are flying F-18s off the decks of aircraft carriers and performing surgeries. That's pretty impressive. What are you doing right now? You guys are warming seats in an auditorium. Those guys are out doing that. And then we also look at the fact that, we talk about programs. And when I came up as a new guy, I started seeing some deficits in my training and what was being passed along to me. And I had this image in my head that the guys who came up before me, they got to be smarter because they have more experience. They've been around. And then even with training, sometimes I see they cloister things so that when we had a specific call, they'd be the cool guy. They'd be the one who was the hero and knew what to do. And Chief Halton, again, this is something separately that you had said one time about fire programs and training. He said, if it's it's not yours if you can't give it away. So if you want to cloister something, then it's really not yours to begin with, because it has to be yours to be able to give it away. So why not give it away? And so that's been the premise of training programs like Wichita Hot, FDIC, where we get together, we network as brothers and sisters, and we get the information out there. So here's the challenge I want to throw out tonight, because people are going to get tired of hearing me talk, because they want to hear you younger folks talk before I need a bathroom break. But I look back on when I was a new guy and say, okay, you got told, who do you think you are? What makes you this? Don't tell me what to do. And especially becoming a younger officer, again, I had that mindset that these people knew what to do. And for some of them, it was a job. It wasn't a duty. It wasn't a calling. It wasn't a career. It was 7 a.m. to 7 a.m. the next day, and they didn't want to have anything more to do with it. But I look at people like Bobby McGee, and I look at people like Ben Waples, Nik Kotocavage, Will Holt, and Bobby Halton, who say, no, it's a lot more than that here. So my question to the millennials tonight, and I don't like labels and throwing you on that group, but at the same time, is what did our generation do, good, bad, and ugly, to help you or hinder you? And based on what you've learned and what you've been able to use as an example, whether it was a positive or negative example, what are you doing now? Because now all of you as millennials, you're getting to that point. There's another generation coming up behind you. And we have a great habit and tradition in the fire service of passing down traditionally, we pass things down to the next generation, good and bad. So what are you doing to either support what we've done for you that was good, or negate and overcome what we've done that was negative for you? So with that, Ben, I'm going to throw it to you. I'm going to throw you under the bus first. And those are a couple of questions I have for you guys. And I want you to be able to kind of speak openly about it. And, again, we want to do this for the betterment of the fire service. So go for it.
Yeah, thanks. I think one of the things that I've struggled with is now, being in Salisbury for as long as I have, and promoting up and being in a position to kind of help mentor those new people. It's like you talked about, you see the stuff where it's like, man, what the hell? Like, these kids don't know what they're doing. Well, of course they don't know what they're doing. Like, it's the first time they've joined the fire service, like what have I done to help them to know that and to know what to do? Like we've talked about before here, you get through your basic firefighting class, through your state training academy, whatever your department's academy, whatever it is. Yeah. Now that you've reached that base level, like, that's great. We always end our graduation ceremonies with congratulations. Now you're there. You're probably now one of the most dangerous people on the fire ground. Okay. You've got just enough training for you to be confident in what you know, but you have no idea what you don't know. And it then becomes our job on the floor to finish them off and polish them up and make sure that, they're getting the information that they need. I'll never forget working with Mike Maykrantz and, doing my FTO and all that kind of stuff, starting in Ocean City. And, holy cow, like, you want to talk about a crazy man, both in a good way and a bad way. He was a fanatic about doing things the right way and making sure things are done the way that they're supposed to. And I learned a lot about that from him. But at the same time, it's like, holy cow, this dude is nuts. Like, love him to death, but this dude is nuts. And like, why do we need to polish the tires on the fire engine at 6:30 in the morning when we're getting off in half an hour? Like, I could have done that. I could have done that last night after dinner, but you want me to do it at 6:30 in the morning? Come on, man. In typical Maykrantz fashion, it would be, hey, you need to go do that. All right. I'm going to sit right here, eat my bowl of cereal, and make sure you're doing a good job. Like, thanks, Maykrantz. Got it. Love you. But relax, dude. you know, so and I pick on him, like I would say that there's very few firemen that are on the level of May Krantz. You know, it's just a phenomenal inside and out, top to bottom. Like, you would struggle to find a better fireman, a better leader, and a better mentor than Mike May Krantz. But like, that's the kind of stuff, like, we would find stuff, and this isn't just specific to him now. We would find stuff to do just because it needed to be done, but let's use our time wisely, not just do stuff to do stuff, you know?
Busy work.
Yeah. So that's kind of my start for now. And it was, I think the thing that really drove that home, you know, it's my job to help start that mentoring, was I saw the Trusted Voices on Fire Engineering with Chief Halton sitting and talking with Chief Brunacini before he passed. And I think Chief Brunacini was talking about, these guys don't, like, one of their senior guys came to him and said, these guys don't know how to run a saw, doesn't know how to do this. And Brunacini's response was, well, have you shown them? Have you taught them? And that's exactly it. Like, yes, we're coming into a position where we're going to be the leaders in the fire service, where we're taking over, but we need to make sure that us as that upcoming generation doing that. And I think, and I would imagine Nick and Will would say the same thing, that we were both very fortunate to have some great mentors to get us to the point where we are. I mean, I don't know about me, but we're not a bunch of shitbags that are here tonight to have this conversation. You know, I know
Let us be the judge of that, son.
I know that there's going to be people that might say that about me, which is fine. They can say that,
No.
but I'm going to try my best to do the best that I can. But at the same time, like, we've gotten to where we are, and we've done what we've done because we have that drive, and we want to be better. You know, and I think that's a big part of this whole thing with the millennials too. And it's not just millennials; it's the generation after that, and the generation after that, and as we go forward. So now I'm going to stop talking and kick it off to somebody else.
Well, Ben, I would agree with you wholeheartedly. And one of the things I've seen in the past is, and it's a poem about, you know, death and dying, unfortunately, but they talk about how you spend your dash. And one of the things that I try to impress on people is there's a big difference in having 20, 25, 30 years of experience, or 25 or 1 year of experience repeated 25 times.
Mm-hmm.
And what have you done in your time in the fire service? Because there are some folks down here in South Florida I've come to meet in recent years that are in the same age group you are, and they're very accomplished. They're extremely bright. They got a lot going on. But one of the things that I think that has happened over the years to kind of pigeonhole the millennials, and I'm going to pass it to Nick next to see what he thinks, is the millennials have had more access to information, advanced education, and there's some of us in the fire service that said, yeah, I'll never need that. That doesn't matter. You know, as long as I have a weak mind and a strong back, I can throw ladders until I'm old and in the grave. But what would happen sometimes is these folks would be highly credentialed but minimally experienced, and they wind up leapfrogging over some of the more senior members when it came time for promotions, and that caused a lot of angst and consternation, where the older generation wouldn't even support them, because now all of a sudden they didn't feel important anymore. They didn't feel validated, and they are. And to that end, one of the things I look at, especially with Ben and Nick and Will, you especially with your instructional background now, is look at all the things that I suck at because I'm not a tech guy. You know who my tech guy is? Well, hold on. So I got to get the screen correct. Ben, over there. Ben has taken this platform to new heights. I could never do it. And that's because the teaching and being able to bring them in to be able to be part of the instructional point that we can start blending the fire service together. And you have a worth and value, and it's not just technology, but you have a stake in the fire service and a place where you have a skill that someone else doesn't. So Nick, I've had the privilege of working with you and seeing you grow up. Now I've seen you go from a boy to a man, and now you've got a family at home and everything else. So Nick, can you talk about some of your experience and how this factors into what you see now and what you'd like to see going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I feel very fortunate. Growing up, I've had my hands in a lot of different trades, so I've had experience with different mechanics of different things, you know. And going back to first off, back to what Chief said about I wish there were more of me. I'm just a regular guy trying to provide for my family that found a career that I'm passionate about. So, I mean, more of me or not, I just wanted to throw that out there. I'm just a regular guy doing my thing. And but what Ben was talking about, how this kid, he gets all the foundation, he goes to fire school, and then he gets picked up by a certain department and goes to their academy. That's a basis. So you have that, and I'm kind of caught in the middle because like you guys have said, I've had nothing but great experience with my different mentors along my path so far, and I took advantage of that personally. I'm asking the questions. I take the classes. I make it. It's more than just a career to me. It's my life. I love this, and I see both. I see people go both ways. So I'm kind of caught in the middle. Like, yes, what are you teaching your new guy or whatever? And then you have the other path. What are you doing to ask for that experience? Are you taking the initiative to say, hey, Cap, hey, can we train on this? I want to know this. And I don't know really. I see both ways. So I'm kind of stuck in the middle. That's all I have for right now. I'm jotting notes down.
Nick, you've always been a man of concise and few words, but I will say this, and Nick is one of those people that when I saw him, he reminded me of the old school, and that's something I could assimilate to, where I was like, oh, this guy came from the trades, he can work with his hands. And we have some younger members coming in right now that they don't know how to operate a power tool. Is it their fault? That's not something they're getting. And so we need to kind of backtrack, because technology has far surpassed everything. And we need to understand not only where the fire service has been, but also where it's going. And, like I was told a long time ago, don't worry about the dinosaurs in the fire service, worry about the eggs they leave behind. And that's true to a point, and I'll give you an example before we pitch over to Will Holt, also known as Big Country. That was a nickname he got long ago, back during some of the training. But, we look at some of the things over time in the fire service of what we've done, what we've not done. And we've really got to be able to put out to some of these newer members in a context they understand. And now there's so much access to information. You can go on YouTube and see 20-minute, 20-second snippets of information that come out. But to Nick's credit, it was one of those people that they reminded me of the old school a little bit. So at the same time, I sound like Charlie Brown's teacher after a while. You put the white hat on, and people will listen to you, not because they really want to, just because I got to listen to this guy because he's doing my evaluation, he's signing my paycheck. It's great if they listen to you because they want to, but at the end of the day, you hope they do. But the same message given by a different voice can resonate completely differently. So when Nick took the opportunity as a young firefighter, and Nick, I'll tell you this, I'm going to embarrass you and you'll turn red, but I'm like, this guy has potential to be an officer very soon, and he should be an officer. And he's like, no. He's going to be modest. He's not going to see it. But right now, this is a guy who would take the time to take whatever he had learned, and he didn't keep it to himself. He passed it along. And the ultimate form of learning was teaching for him. So he would pass this information along, and he wanted to be better. And Nick, you remember some of the crazy assignments I used to give you in the beginning of the shifts. I'd say, hey, Nick, by the end of the shift, I want a power. I hate PowerPoint, by the way, no offense. But I said, Nick, give me a presentation on XYZ subject. This guy would take it and run with it. Not that I really wanted him to do a PowerPoint presentation for the group, which was nice because it saved me a little bit of work. But the guy learned it, and he was able to know that subject inside and out. And not only that, but he could pass it along to others. And Nick, you did a great job with it. Again, I'm very proud of your grooming standards that you've come to adhere now that you're with the county. You actually comb your hair. Is your shirt tucked in? I don't even want to know.
Not right now.
This is a waste up only thing.
So anyway, but all that aside, so that was that bridge that was gapped, and so between some of the things that Chief Halton said, my experience with Ben and Nick, and then I'm going to pass over to Will also, where you see these folks who at first you're like, it's a young kid, they're wet behind the ears, but they get it, they understand it, and these are the people now who are, in Ben's case, he's an officer. In Nick and Will's case, if you guys don't sit for an exam, I know you might not think you're ready, but get up off your ass and do it, because you're the next generation. You're the guys who are leading this fire service because you got the right mentality. And like you said, it's a duty, it's an honor. This is a privilege to do what we do, best job in the world. So before I embarrass Nick any further, I'm going to turn it over to Will, and tell us about the good, the bad, and the ugly of your experience coming up, and also what you plan to do for bringing up the next generation.
Yeah, thanks, Trevor. I appreciate that. That's a lot of good comments, man. Hey, at the end of the day, I love this job. I think it's the best job in the world. I don't know if anything else I could do really besides construction work, but that's my back shows for that. So, I truly believe that the secret sauce, if there is any, is in those mentors, right? Coming up, in a previous life, I had a little bit harder time as far as going to some trainings and trying to be that aggressive fireman. I feel like when we all come into this service, we have this idea of what a fireman should be, right? Hopefully you do. And when you come in, you try to strive to have that standard. Chief Mike Walker of Oklahoma City talks about that fireman standard, and to uphold that and strive to have that was very important to me. But I took some backlash in the very beginning as far as, hey kid, what are you doing? This is how we do this, and I've since moved on from that. But that actually made me, I feel, more knowledgeable as far as developing myself. And I wrote this down. It's not always going to be easy to not just get along to go along, right? I had a hard time being the guy that, hey, I'm going to go to this training on my own, or I'm going to pay money to go to FDIC and go see Trevor and hang out with all the good people up there, and that wasn't always very received, So, working through that and getting to where I'm at now, I'm very fortunate. I work for a department now that is rich in tradition and takes care of their members. As far as our academies, I see in our academies that from day one, we set that fireman standard, and at the end of the day, with members, they don't know what they don't know. So as long as we set that standard from the very beginning, and anytime we get a new fireman into our house, I try to set that standard, right? Because just like Ben said, and just like Chief Walker mentions, and many fire service leaders before, that if we don't take the time to show these people what that standard is, then we have nowhere to go from there, or no reason to bitch about it at the end of the day.
And Will, I couldn't agree with you more. And I feel like the old guy, as Nick would call me, museum quality. But I see some of you guys coming up, and it gives me joy to see what's coming up next in the fire service, because there's always that guy. And I'm going to switch to Bobby McGee here real quick, because Bobby is one of those people who will take any opportunity to just bust my chops about technology. I'm not a tech guy. Bobby knows this, and he makes me very well aware of this all the time. But in the age of technology, and especially social media, we see a lot of things coming out that sometimes don't reflect well on some of the younger generation. And I know from personal conversations with you guys, you're like, oh, why did that person do that? That just puts us so much further back. And you look at that firefighter or that paramedic or both who spends more time posting about just ancillary things. And if they put as much time into training and learning the job and being a practitioner of their trade that they did in posting stuff, and I'm not talking about posting a training segment that helps others, but here's our prank of the day at the firehouse. And granted, you talked about Mike Maykrantz earlier, Ben. I won't mention anything because the statute of limitations is not up on some of the things, but every single one of you guys in personal conversations has said, oh, that guy. And we hear that a lot from other people in that millennial group who have that struggle, because for every great thing that all of you guys do, there's that other faction of the same age group that detracts from it. So Bobby McGee, as the probably you're a little bit older than me. I'll let that go. But anyway, but as a person who's actually, adheres to training, and somebody I have a great deal of respect for in the fire service, not only from an operational and administrative standpoint, but from a training standpoint, and you engage this younger generation constantly at your advanced age. So, Bobby, can you talk about that a little bit, as far as how you've come to blend everything together, from not only the physical but also the way people learn in the contemporary society, and also the social media part?
Yeah, thanks, Trevor. I guess the way to start off is how I started. So, I started off firefighting in the Navy, and I don't even include that in my fire service time, because it was just such a different kind of thing in the military. But when I came to the what I call the regular American fire service, was in the 80s. I remember going through my school. I was a volunteer here in Delaware, and I went through Delaware State Fire School, and we had like 240 people in their structural firefighting class all at the same time, kind of rolling through things, And I remember that was like, you had to have these certain particular classes back then in Delaware to be certified as a firefighter. And I took those classes, and I came back to my local fire department, and I remember, just like it was yesterday, that how much I felt like I didn't know. I came out of there, and I felt like I wasn't. I felt like I wasn't. I didn't tell anybody this, but I didn't feel like I was ready. And I developed a hunger for knowing more about my job. It just started that way, and it just so happened, and Bobby's probably going to remember this, but it just so happened around that same time, Fire Engineering put out an insert, and it was really the big argument that's still going on about smoothbore versus fog stream patterns,
Smooth bore.
yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. But when I read that article, the fire stream management book that Fire Engineering put out, and I read that from front to back, and learned more, and that continued on, and then, one of the big secrets about instructors is, after doing it for a gazillion years, when you become an instructor, you're not ready to be an instructor. There's no instructor that ever started off that was remotely ready to be an instructor. And so for our millennials that are just going off, you're probably not comfortable being a mentor, because you're probably not ready to be a mentor in a broad sense. But every single thing you learn well, you're a mentor. If you know how to go through a door correctly, if you know how to advance a hose line correctly, you're ready. So, what ends up happening is, training so many people for so long, the one thing I noticed about the millennials is there's an age. It's not really the millennials in general, but there's an age. Like when guys are between like 19 and 23, they tend to really want to learn a lot. They want to run lines for 2 hours with you. They want to, go through the door, 20, 30 times. They want to do all these kinds of things with you. And then a lot of guys end up going, like, they back off of all that. And they kind of, they hang their hat on their experience. They go, I go to fires and I get that, and so on and so forth. Well, I never felt that way. I always felt like you always got to be a student of the game. And I also felt like you got to be relevant. And so that's, I've always kind of migrated back to being an interior officer kind of guy, or interior firefighter kind of guy, because that's really where I love to be. And if you're willing to do that, if you're willing to take the lumps along with the millennials, you'll instantly gain a lot of respect from them. And then the funny thing is, when you gain that respect from them, like if you tell a millennial, yeah, I used to do that, they may not buy it. It's just, that's how they're wired. And like you said, Trevor, man, we've never had as much information available to these guys as we have in the past. So, really, truly, if you say if we give praise to our military, then you're giving praise to millennials, because there's nobody my age out there running through Iraq or Afghanistan or anywhere like that. It's all millennials over there. So if you feel like you support our servicemen and women in this country, then you're supporting millennials. And the fire service is the same way. These guys are they're the next generation to come up. And, we need to work really hard to be students of the game. What I learned after 32 years is how much I don't know about the fire service. It's just one of those things that that as you go along, you figure out how many things you don't know. So I think a little bit of humility goes a long way for those of guys who've been around for a while when you're dealing with these new millennials. And I think a little bit of patience goes a long ways too. What took us 30 years to learn, they're not going to get in 6 months. They might get exposed to it. They might see it. They might hear it, but they're just not going to be good at it yet. And I think we have to have a little bit of patience for that too, that they just haven't had the reps yet. So that's kind of a short spin. I want to really want to hear what Bobby has to say about all this. But I mean, I think you got to be relevant. You got to be believable by them, and that's by being relevant. And you got to always be a student of the game. You have always got to be a student of the game. You can never think if you've got it, and everyone's heard this before. If you got it, it's time to get out, because it's just you. I'll die not having it. I'll just keep chasing this thing forever. So that's pretty much what my thoughts were, Trevor.
Yeah, and brother, I agree with you, and I've had the privilege of working with Bobby McGee and teaching with them all over the country. And it's one of those things where I was actually talking about you earlier today, Bobby, is that, if I see something as black and somebody else sees as white, you see that form of gray that nobody else ever considered, and we have that aha moment. So I think, like you said, your relevance, you don't want to feel like that dinosaur that's sitting there telling war stories to the younger generation, because some of those things are interesting, but how does it help them be better at doing their job? And a lot of times they'll satiate you and listen to your story, but they want the information and how it applies now. And Bobby, to your credit, I remember when you're going through some of the pump training, you had some folks come to you and say, "Hey, this is all great stuff, but what do I need to know? Tell me the 3 a.m. stuff." And you were flexible enough to kind of change your training and be able to have that kind of flexibility and insight versus being rigid and saying, "Okay, well, it's my way or the highway." And if we still had that same attitude, we'd still be writing with markers on acetate on the overhead projector versus using what we do now in some of the classrooms. So, Chief Halton, I just kind of want to throw it to you just for a second and say, with the platform that has been established through FDIC, and we look at things when FDIC first started, for example, it was a fire department instructors conference. It was very small. It was intimate. It was great. But now look at how it's just, we're talking tens of thousands of people from multiple nations throughout the world that attend this. And it's been opened up. And we've seen that. And at first, I know there was some reluctance and resistance, because then we all put on our instructor face and say, who's this guy out here whose balls haven't even dropped yet, who's coming into this class with us? And then we realized, okay, well, if you're going to be an instructor, part of your obligation is to pass along, not only as the instructor for the class, but as the participant. If you have information to pass along, the onus is on you. So could you talk for a minute, if you would, about how the platform of FDIC has changed over the years and how it starts to incorporate some of these up and coming people that, maybe a year ago we never heard of, and now there are people we're following on social media?
Okay, well, it started in 1928, and actually in 1928, it was considered a rather large gathering. And one of the things which is interesting historically, especially in the United States, is that voices that need to be heard tend to be heard despite the crowd. So if you think about our early days in the early 1700s, there was a guy named Whitefield who came to America. He was a preacher from England, young man, he was about 27 when he got here. But he had to leave England because in England, he had created such a stir with his preaching where he said all men were equal. So whether you were the king or a duke, or you were the guy shoveling horse poop off the street, you were equal in God's eyes. And when he would speak, crowds of 20 and 30,000 people would show up. One of the guys that went to hear him talk was a guy named Ben Franklin. And Ben Franklin, probably around 1730, 1740, somewhere in there, went to go hear this guy Whitefield speak. And he'd heard of him. And he said before he went, he made sure he didn't take too much money. He took a couple pieces of silver, a couple pieces of copper, a couple pieces of gold. Well, because Whitefield could charm the money right out of your pockets. And he was determined not to give him any more of his money. But by the end of it, he admitted that he gave every penny he had, he put into the collection plate for this guy because he was that good. The other thing that he was trying to test was he had heard that no matter where you were in the crowd, you could hear him as if he was standing next to you. And so he walked around this crowd of 20,000 people And he found that to be true. And he wrote about it. It's all written. Franklin copied this all down. And I think it's still true today. So in 1928, when FDIC started the Fire Department Instructors Conference, it was considered rather large. There were probably 40 or 50 men, and they're all men at those times, who all met. And remember, there weren't the acoustical stuff we have today in 1928. It was a hall, and they wrote papers. And a man would stand behind a podium, and he would speak. And the other men would be quiet and listen. And they would hear every word he said. And that's true today. When a man stands to speak at FDIC, or a woman today, the crowd's quiet and they listen. If you see the respect that the men and women in the fire service show for the people who are willing to get up and share, it's phenomenal. And it's not something that's common throughout all parts of our society. And Aristotle wrote about how when Plato would speak, Plato never wrote a word. It was all written after. So it's the same phenomena, right? And that becomes part of who we are. And the men and women who are drawn to this profession are people who value humanity above all else. And they respect the sanctity of the individual and the individual life. And they're willing to risk themselves as groups to save one forlorn individual who they know nothing about. And that's the predicate. That's the predicate for becoming a firefighter. I wanted to read something real quick. Am I allowed to take a minute outside the question?
Of course, Chief.
Okay. I want to break any rules.
Oh, you're good.
You're good.
There are no rules.
I've been known for that. And I got a couple of notes because I'm a ombudsman by nature, and I just want to talk about it. But this was written interesting. It says, the world is running fast. No group or any business is running faster for progress or for survival than fire chiefs. In just a decade, a dot in the American fire service continuum, the business of providing emergency service has been transformed with unprecedented speed and unprecedented proportions. Never has fire service tradition been so thoroughly scrutinized, exploded, and rewritten. Never have fire departments experienced the magnitude of organizational cultural change, nor has the successful fire department goes on and on. Any idea when that was written? When were you born, Will? You can
1991.
91? Nick? 91?
Nice.
Same thing, yes, sir.
Before you guys were born. But those words could be true right now today. Right?
Of course.
So it's interesting. My old man was a great guy. Was on the job for a while. Then he drank himself off it. Then he became a lawyer, and he quit drinking. I don't know what we were more embarrassed about, the fact that he quit drinking or he became a lawyer, but I'm just kidding. I don't drink either. So, and I love my dad. It's just a joke. But God bless him. But he used to say, don't throw out your skinny ties, because ties can do two things. They can go wide, they can go narrow. And it's interesting. Smoothbore versus fog. Oh, I'm a smoothbore guy, I'm a fog guy. If that's all you know about nozzles, you're in trouble, because there are about 11 types of nozzles out there. And if you don't know all of them, you're a knucklehead. And if you don't realize that you need that fog nozzle, if you've got a gas line that's busted, or if you're going into a petroleum plant or a boat manufacturing place or a place that's got, you better have that fog nozzle and you better know how to use it. If all you have is one gun in your pocket, you're the guy I want to be in a gunfight with, because I am going to kill your ass. So there's no one tool fits all. Some other things that we heard. The recruit is not the most dangerous guy. The new kid's not the most dangerous guy. The most dangerous guy in the fire service is between 7 to 12 years. And we know that from an empirical study. And that's the guy who thinks he knows what he doesn't know. Will Rogers once said, we're all ignorant, just different subjects. And Thomas Jefferson said, the most dangerous man in the world is the man who's read one book. And so generally speaking, what he meant was, you've got this person who believes they know, it's the illusion of knowledge. And as Bobby was talking about, as you get older, you get to be my age. I don't know Jack. I'm just making shit up. It's just really good that none of you other people know Jack either, because you're buying it. I'm just kidding. But I mean, we know how little we really know. The world is a complex, incredibly dynamic place. And we know a fraction of that. Our worldview is comprised of just this minute little window. Plato once said that the wisest people were the people who could see the light outside the cave, but the rest of us were all staring at the back of the cave. Shit, my head's so far into the bad dung, it won't be out of it till 8 millennia from now. But I'll tell you what, there are two things that I always remember. And Tommy Brennan used to tell me I would never be a pimple on a good fireman's ass. And I always wondered, is there a bunch of firemen running around with pimples on their ass? But anyway, And he was my best friend, and he and Alan, and I feel like the last man standing out of that group. I'm on Medicare, so I'm like the oldest bastard of this group here. And thank you, people, for paying your bloody taxes so I can get colonoscopies regularly. But one of the things that I've always felt is that, and this is in all honesty, I've been given a lot of privilege in this industry, and I'm very grateful for this platform. And I like to be a little bit bawdy from time to time with the troops, because I think as a good leader, you've got to remind the troops that you're still a troop. I'll always be a firefighter first. That's, if you look at my coin, it says American Firefighter. That's all it says. It doesn't say, my website says American Firefighter. That's my tombstone. I won't have one because I'm going to get cremated, but if I was, that's all I wanted, somebody to say he was a good fireman. That's all I'm asking. Not a chief, not a captain, not a leader. I just want to be known as a decent firefighter. And I hope someday that I'm the fireman that the people in the fire service deserve to have sat in this position as I have for 15 years. I hope someday I'm worthy of that, of what's been given to me. And I think we all feel that way. I think Nick feels that way. I think Willie feels that way. I think we all feel that we've been given this incredible opportunity. Viktor Frankl once said the greatest thing in life is to have a purpose, to be able to serve other people. And we get to do that every day. And I don't care if you're dealing with some poor guy who's a whacked out crackhead on the side of the street who's been drunk for 20 years. That person can teach you something. They can show you something that you never knew was possible. They can change your life in an instant by you just being there for them, because then they're going to be there for you. And a funny thing happened to me today. I knew we were going to be talking about this. I shared a letter I gotten from another firefighter a couple of weeks ago with everybody. But I was watching a special, which was horribly done about Grant by Chernoff and Leonardo DiCaprio on the History Channel. It's full of progressive left-wing biased bullshit. But it was great. But they showed some real pictures of some soldiers from the Civil War, and I looked at their faces, and they were Will, and they were Nick, and they were Bobby, and they were Trevor. I mean, you could superimpose any one of your faces on any one of those soldiers' faces from 1862, 1863, whenever they were taken, and they're us. And I think what has happened today is that we're in the silliest generation. I think, I'm a boomer, but screw X's and millennial. That's gibberish. Right. You put people into little things like that, you're an idiot, because there are things that I do that 19-year-old guys would be embarrassed about, and there's things that that I do that are appropriate for my age, right? So, and I still skateboard for full disclosure. I was a skateboarder as a kid, and I'm still a skater. And I skated when we had clay wheels, baby. I skated with Alva and Peralta and those people. I was with the Lords of Dogtown, man. So when I talk about skating, I was a skater. So, but I look at the faces and I see the hearts of those men in those pictures, and I see you guys. I see us. But we ascribe motive these days very freely. Our television, our social media. Well, what Trump meant. Well, what Hillary meant. Oh, that's a dog whistle. Really? Really? Then anything anybody says can be construed to mean anything anybody wants, and you can throw any label on anybody. But the people who die in wars are young people, and the people who die in calamities like we're having right now are old people. So it's about the fragility of the envelope, and it's about the wisdom of the old being shared with the enthusiasm of the young, and that's the beauty of the fire service. Because we do that. I've been to Wichita Hot. I've spoken in a couple of places, and I'm always received graciously and kindly. And I know shit. Every now and then I got to get my grandson to tell me how to make this dopey thing work right. And he's gracious and he's kind and he shows me how to. Grandpa, this is an app, and and this is how that works. And he's not just condescending or mean. And I hope I'm the same with him when he asks me questions about people and life and the things that I've gone through, and war and struggle, because life is about struggle. It's not about happiness. It's not about any of that. It's about dignity and struggle. And oftentimes that struggle in life gets really sporty and people are at risk. And that's when guys and gals like us show up and make it better. And that's a privilege we should never take for granted. And I have never met a firefighter who has. Not a real firefighter. Now, we've had some crazy uncles in our basement and some weird aunts who shouldn't have been here, but 99, I've never met one I didn't like. I thought some of them were wackadoodle dandies, but I've never met one I didn't like. I never met one I didn't love. And I say that unreservedly. And there are people out there who I know don't think a lot of me, but for what they've been willing to do and who they are, I love them, because we don't have any power. We don't carry guns. We just show up and try to make it better. And as long as we keep doing that, I don't care if you're 99 or 9. If you want to help somebody, I'm right there with you, man. Show me what we need to do, and I'll try to help. And
send me.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I just and just being able to do stuff like this. I mean, this is like, that's why FDIC matters. That's why the United Fire Conference matters. Because other people look at us like, you guys just sit around and talk about firefighting for 3 days? Hell yeah!
Yeah, how great is that?
And of course, cars and girls and guys. We talk about our husbands and wives and girlfriends and boyfriends and cars and sports, but mostly firefighting.
Right.
Hey, Ben.
Yes, sir.
Point of procedure from now on, Halton has to go last, because how can you follow this guy? But anyway,
right. Exactly.
But actually, Chief, thank you for that. And no truer words have been spoken. And in deference to our friend Tom Brennan, in fond memories, he was the guy who taught me how to read fire engineering backwards, because when he used to have random thoughts, you remember that at the back of the magazine?
Yeah.
As soon as you got your fire engineering magazine, for you millennials, that was it was a publication. After they finished chiseling it in stone, they actually put it out in paper and on Sanskrit. But anyway,
when I was offered this job, true story. Tommy's one of my best friends, and so true story. I get offered this job. I was a fire chief in Coppell, Texas. That's this little Republican ghetto outside of Dallas. They have like a fire of the month club, and it's always in somebody else's neighborhood. So greatest firefighters, greatest fire department. The day I showed up, I told them we need a ladder truck. A week later, they gave me $1.5 million. That's all I had to do was say we needed one, and we bought one. So that kind of place, right? So they offered me the fire engineering job. I hadn't put in for it. And so I called Tommy up and I said, gee, Tommy, I don't know what to do. And this is a true story. Tommy says, Halton, listen, stupid. I put your name in for that job. I want you to take the job. I said, Tommy, I don't even know how to spell editor. He said, they got people who do that for you. I said, Tommy, what if I'm a failure? He goes, Halton, how many fire chiefs are there in America? I said, I don't know, Tommy, 30,000, 40,000. He goes, that's right. How many editors in fire engineering? 1. That's right, you idiot. You're to be the only one. So then I called Bruno, right? Because we were best friends. I said, Bruno, what do I do, man? I don't know what to do, Chief. I don't want to take this job. I was nervous. I was scared. I don't know if I'll be any good. Bruno says to me, he goes, Halton, take the job. Then you could be like Brennan. For the rest of your life, walk around saying you used to be the editor of fire engineering. That's a true story.
Oh my God.
It's freaking hysterical, man. You couldn't. I mean, it was like, God, it was like hanging out with Lewis and Martin or Abbott and Costello. Like they were just one-upping each other all the time, man.
And these were the same guys who would sit there, no matter if you were 30 years on the job or a rookie, they'd sit there at the Clada in Indianapolis and have a beer with you. I mean,
I was in the middle on the stage between the two of them while they made fun of me.
Well, and like I say, I used to literally read fire engineering from back to front. I'd flip to the back page to look at Random Thoughts by Tom Brennan, and then I'd read the rest of it. But
you can buy them all. We put them in a book. You can buy them all. And
that's a fantastic part about our legacy.
Yeah, and his editorials are excellent too. If you go to the archives, he was editor-in-chief of Fire Engineering for 7 years, and his editorials are phenomenal.
Well, and that's something to pass along. And I'll say this real briefly because I want to pass this along to Ben and Nick and Will for some final thoughts on this. Trying to pass along the information and bridging the gap. All of you guys have brought up the same thing. There's a lot of guys who either leave the fire service or retire, and they take that knowledge with them. And it's critical it gets passed along. And it might not all be valuable. It might not all be applicable, but
might not all be true.
Well, that's true. I mean, yeah, absolutely. But you guys are smart enough because now you can actually what's called Reddit or whatever. You can go online and look and see if something's validated. But either way, point being is that you can actually go and you look back at some of these things, and we want to pass it on. And one of the last academy classes that I had the privilege of being involved with is we gave a lunch break. And of course, the recruits are going, okay, why are they giving us a 2-hour lunch break? Something is wrong. Because, everything was, very regimented and structured. And that 2-hour lunch break, there was no instructors, there was no officers. We brought in retirees, and we sat the academy class and the retirees together and said, have lunch, talk, and either listen or talk. But these guys who retired, they've already fought the union battles. They've already seen this. They can give you a lot of good information. And the new guys can, it was a great way to bridge the gap. And they sat there and had a great conversation. But the other thing was, too, that the retirees felt that they had some validity when they came. And I've not been gone very long from Ocean City, but I remember coming back into our Midtown station where I cut my teeth on ladder truck up there, and I came into the station and I had a nice young guy go, excuse me, sir, this is a restricted area. Can I help you? I'm like, no, I'm good. And I was trying to go and get a cup of coffee, and he couldn't figure out why I was there. And, he stopped me again, very kind. And, so I told him, oh, yeah, I'm one of the old guys. I retired here a few years ago. So, it was one of those things where you bridged that gap and brought them together, but they got to talk, and all that information, even if it didn't happen in that 2-hour period, the recruits could call up a retiree and say, hey, man, look, we just had this call down here, and I remember you saying something about, this building or this area of town. Can you? So it opened up those lines of communication. So what I'm going to ask for Ben and Nick and Will is, what are you guys doing? You've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. You've been on the job long enough where, no, you're not dangerous. You're actually good, and you know what you're doing. But you want to make it good for the people behind you, because these are the people that now you're going to be supervising. And there's some of us who, we're the rods, the retired on duties. I hope I don't fit in that category, but you know who they are. The guys who, they're just counting the days until their pension check comes, and they don't care about the job anymore. And that's sad, but you still have to deal with them, because now you're the officers who have to not only have leadership up and down. And that's part of a class that, actually I was fortunate enough to get picked up again at FDIC this year for 2021. So it's 360-degree leadership. You have to lead up and down as someone in your generation, because you're officers or aspiring officers now. So what are each one of you, starting with Ben, doing to make that course correction based on what we did right, meaning our generation before you, what we did right, what we did wrong, what we could have done better. And we're not trying to poke each other in the eye, but what are you doing now, or what do you envision doing as a course correction to make the next generation coming up behind you the best firefighters and paramedics and practitioners of our trade that they can be?
Yeah, that's a great question, Trevor. And I think, well, first off, one of our first comments was that we had from Kevin Belcher, who works part-time in Ocean City and is a sergeant in a large metropolis, whatever that word is, department on Eastern Shore or on the Eastern Seaboard. He asked if I could bring in my buddy Mitch Irwin. So there, and this will have to be a story from another time. We'll have to do a whole night on just pranks and stuff from the firehouse. But
it's your alter ego, Mitch Irwin.
Yeah. So anyway, Mitch Irwin is a Australian firefighter paramedic that did an exchange program in Ocean City, and he sounds a little bit like this. So one of the things I think we do is that we have to take those. Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but before Ben gets started on this, and we're not going to get too far into it, I had to explain this to a state senator as why we had an Australian firefighter exchange program. But go ahead, Ben, please.
Yeah, right. Great job at the time. So yeah, we have to. Sorry, well, I can't do the whole thing in that accent. We as those people, taking over the next generation, like we have to recognize that, and like Trevor had said earlier. Nick and Will not promoting yet, and I was in a different situation in Salisbury where I was able to move up and move up rather quickly. But when you guys take the test and get made and all that kind of stuff, like you realize that it's part of the job, and we're all here because we love the job, that it's a part of us, and we're students of the fire service, and that we're invested from the time we walk through the door to even on our days off. There's not a day where, like, you're never off. Like, you get a text message, hey, well, what happened on this call? We had something come up, whatever. You're always engaged in it somehow, whether it's reading on fire engineering or, looking at something or whatever it is. But you have to be a student of the fire service, and you have to be invested in that. And like Bobby McGee said, you have to show these new people coming in that you know what you're doing, and that you're willing to crawl down the hallway, to force the door, to pull the line, to train with them and do all that stuff. So that way they know that you're invested in them. If you can show that, like, these kids will follow you. And I say kids, I'm a part of that, but they will follow you wherever you want to go with it. And they'll do just about anything that you ask them to do once they know that you're committed to the fire service, to the department, and to them, and to their development too. And I think that's the big thing, is showing that it's not about me. It's not about Ben Waples. It's not about anybody else. When the shit hits the fan, yeah, I'm going to be there for you. But when the shit hits the fan, it's about whoever we're going to. It's not about anything else. Like, I don't really care, who else I have on the fire engine, because again, there might be people that I'm with that I don't really care for, or whatever, that I know we don't have the same thought process. We don't have the same mindset, but I know when it comes down to it that we're going to get the job done, and we're going to work well together, because I know that this is what they're thinking, and this is what they know what I'm thinking, and we're going to get it done. And that's what it's all about. So once you can convey that to them, and then they see that and they understand that, then it makes everything a lot easier. It's that leading from the front mentality with all of that.
Awesome, man. Thanks. And Nick, I'll pass it over to you next. What are your thoughts from the heart and course corrections that you want to make as somebody you've got some experience in the fire service, you've done well, you've got a bright future ahead of you, don't screw it up. But what are some things that you would say as someone in that quote unquote millennial age group? And I can't stand the labels, but going with that, what's your thoughts? What's your heart tell you?
Well, Chief, as you said before, I'm a man of many words, so I'll try to keep it short. Chief Halton was saying that, first of all, thank you for everything you said. That was awesome, Chief. But labeling people in boxes, I don't do that personally. Everyone stereotypes every now and again, but I take people at face value. This is what you have to offer, and I take advantage of that personally. Going back to the RODs, that's not a guy, you have 25 years and you're saying do this or do that, and you're bad mouthing the new guy, whatever, the new boy. You're not showing me, I don't know, lead by example is all I'm saying to the people before me, I'll say that. And share what you have. That's been I'm not saying that.
You said you have to live. You have to live your life so that other people can feel comfortable being around you. You know what I mean? And especially in our service, what you're saying is, lead by example. This means don't set standards that you can't live up to, and you're going to fall short. But be honest about it. I screw up from time to time. We all do. I've got a nasty temper, and you don't want to get in front of me when I'm mad. You know what I mean?
Owning your mistakes goes a long way.
Yeah, and every now and then I lose my temper, and I got to go back and tell people, "Hey, sorry, I killed your dog." I never killed anybody's dog, but you know what I mean. And so you're right, Nick. It's about mentoring isn't about teaching people the ropes or, any of that. It's just, if you're a person that they can look up to and feel comfortable speaking with, that's all that is. And you can be mentored by somebody 20 years younger than you. I am every day.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
30 years
And,
younger.
and to the new guys like me, I want to say I learn more observing and listening. Like Chief Stephen was talking about how they have your retirees and your recruits coming together and either talk or listen. I listen more than I speak. Obviously, I'm not the best
There you
speaker,
go.
but just that observation. You can learn so much by sitting back and seeing a bigger picture, and that'll go so far in your career, especially if you take the initiative. So you observe, hey, this is happening. This is what I have to do. That'll help you see what you have to do now, step 2, step 3, step 4, and that's the way that I think. A lot of people my age don't think that, this is what I have to do now. What about the next 5 steps? That's a huge thing, being proactive and taking that initiative to at least learn one thing every day. That's something that I strive on. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you for the time and opportunity. It's been nothing but awesome. I appreciate all of you.
Nick, you done good. And then Willie Holt, I'm going to pass it to you, and then I'll pass to Bobby McGee, and we'll go around the horn and wrap this up. But Will, same question for you. What's your course correction? You've been around a while. I've gotten to know you throughout the fire service. Have a great deal of respect for you. You've gotten into the instructional side of things, so you've really taken everything to heart and tried to be everything you can be in this industry, and it's appreciated. So what are your thoughts and pearls of wisdom you want to put out there for people in your same age group, and then going forward, what are you going to do for the folks coming up behind you?
Yeah, Trevor, thanks, man. That really means a lot, and to have, I think it's a testament to have people like you, and I spoke earlier about finding those mentors, right? The secret sauce isn't anything more than establishing a good mentor for a young person. I believe is finding that mentor that can mold you the way that you want to go, right? Luckily for me, it was the Fools. I got involved with the Fools. They said, hey, this is what we're here for. We're here for the brotherhood and sisterhood of the fire service. And if we learn something along the way, that's even better. So I got involved with them, and I feel like as a learning point to people my age and younger, find a mentor, whether it's somewhere within your department, a senior man that you can fall upon, or on top of that, again, it might not be the easy route, it might not be the most accepted route, but if you have to go outside of your department to find somebody that you can bring in as your mentor to set that, and I say it again, that fireman standard. We constantly have to evaluate our standard, right, and where we want to be, and hopefully we want that standard to be high. So biggest thing I can say is to find a mentor that's going to mold you to where you think your career wants to go, right? Because we get one shot. We get one shot at this job, and luckily it's the best job in the world, and we can have a big impact, or we cannot have any impact at all. And I hope that, as I say, finding those avenues. There's young people to this day. I've got buddies that are starting the April Fool's Fire Conference, bringing in good dudes all over the place. Isaac Frazier from WFB bringing in into the job. This is a blue collar job that I think we're seeing a trend, guys coming back into it with that passion, and that these are our people. This is our city, and to see that throughout the ages, and young people taking that initiative and saying, all right, we're going to do that constant evaluation of setting a standard and meeting that standard. And the cool part about where I work, and I'm fortunate, I had a chief tell me a long time ago, wherever you're at is the best place to be. So as a millennial, it's the best place to be. It's better than every generation, right? Because we have great people before us that can teach us an ample amount of information, and people below us that want to soak it in, and we can just pass it along. So the best place to be. So being able to be in that position of, which is a cool position because everything comes in full circle, right? We see the shift of everybody owning that, like these are our people, and I think we all see it when it comes to search culture and being passionate about our people. It's a cool topic to talk about, but I'm just luckily that I have mentors like you guys and the Fools and my crew, and I'm blessed there. So if anything that I said in my ramblings, which I say a lot, unlike Nick knows when to shut up, is that latch on to somebody and take in everything you can. You know, one of the best comments I ever got was from a senior engineer on my department he's 29 years on the job, getting ready to retire. I shipped out, or I was on vacation, and he told me that, hey, I worked too much when you were gone. And that was a badge to me. Like, I'm going to own this. This is the best place, right? I'm a millennial. This is the best place. So when him telling me that he's working too hard when I'm gone means that I'm doing my job right. And that's the mentality that we need to have is our generation. Because guess what? It's our generation. We're going to prove all that other stuff wrong. So thanks, man.
That's some strong work, Will Holt. I appreciate that. And yeah, that's some very good words. And just real quick, Nick, how old are you? How old are you? What?
30.
I'm 28.
28.
Oh,
This T-shirt is older than you, but anyway, that's not important right now.
yeah, I saw
Anyway.
that the other day.
Now, it was so funny because my son was wearing that T-shirt earlier today, and that was a T-shirt that I started with many moons ago. It's a little bit big on him. He's only 12, and I'm like, oh my God, that shirt's older than some of the people on the panel tonight. But hey, it's going a great place. But I want to wrap up with some final thoughts, and with that, Bobby McGee, I want to pass off to you for some final thoughts and anything you want to share with the group as far as your outlook and perspective on this generation that's going to take our fire service forward.
Yeah, Trevor, I think we're in great hands. I think that you know, the guys that get it, and the guys that don't. That 10% of those guys that really put that extra effort in have always existed in the fire service. You've always had those. I don't care how small a fire department it is you go to. There's that one guy that's just thirsting for knowledge and thirsting for skills and things like that. I haven't seen any change in those numbers. So I feel very good about that. It's great to talk with you guys, and I'm Irish, so running a happy hour over a little bit's normal for me. But no, I think we're in great hands. I think I think that I think one thing that we can do as a fire service is we give out a lot of confusion about whether or not to engage in this enemy anymore. And I think the message that we need to give consistently is we do need to engage this enemy and help these people, get these people out of their houses when they're on fire and put their houses out when they're on fire and keep ourselves safe. And I think the young guys want to buy into that too, but sometimes we have a lot of noise about us, about what we should or shouldn't do. And I think those guys, once they get a clear message in their own minds about where they want to go, they'll right the ship and sail right straight ahead and bail or hold asses out someday. So it's been a good night. Thank you,
Bobby. Thank you. And we'll go around the horn a little bit. And Chief Halton, I want to give you the final word. And but Nick, what's your final word on things? What's the last pearls of wisdom you're going to grace us with this evening?
Oh, Chief, put me on the spot again. I didn't write an intro. I didn't have anything prepared in terms of my introduction. So
Speak from the heart, brother.
I'm gonna wing it. No, just I appreciate everything everyone said. Mr. McGee, thank you for being that guy that takes the time to share with us what you have. And that's my biggest thing is if the generation before shares what you have, the guy that's in my shoes better take advantage of that. That's all I have. Thank you.
Awesome, Ben. Sorry, I called you Ben. Nick, great job. And when the lieutenant's test comes around, your ass better be sitting in that exam seat. So that's all I have to say. Anyway, Ben, you're up next.
Yeah, thank you guys. Wow, what a night. Holy cow. I got to be honest, I never thought So this is our sixth one. I never thought back to our first one that we'd be sitting here with such a great group of guys to talk, one, just about the fire service in general, and two, to talk about what we're doing with the past that we had, and the legacy of the fire service that we've been giving, and what my generation and Nick and Will and what we're doing with our generation and where we're going with the fire service. To sit here and to have that conversation is just like I've been off all day, just thinking about having this conversation tonight. So it is truly an honor to be here and to be a part of this. So thank you, Trevor, Bobby Squared. Thank both of you guys. Will, Nick, thanks for joining us. This is just an awesome night.
Pleasure.
Trevor, one of the things that you mentioned was the lunch that you did with the retirees for the academy class that you guys taught. And one of my favorite things is that we would do, and we did it for a couple months for a while, is that we would have the retired guys from Ocean City. We get together for lunch. We try to do it once a month, but to sit there and to listen to these guys cut up and carry on and go back and forth about the pranks that they played and the calls that they went on and
the good old days.
Yeah, just all of it, and to sit and just even though I was the one texting them and calling them, hey man, you gonna make lunch next Thursday, like just to sit there and to be a part of that conversation. And they all, I'd say they knew me. A few of them I'd been able to work with. But just to sit there and to listen to their stories and to hear all that knowledge and to hear the fun that they had was fantastic. And it was such an awesome opportunity. And to be able to pass that on to the next generation, to the next group coming in it's a requirement of what we have to do. We are fortunate. I think, Will, you mentioned it, you're that middle group. So you have to take that information from the previous group, take that in, learn what you can, and then it's your requirement to pass that on. To have these people leave the organization and leave departments and leave the fire service and not share that information, and the same thing to take what we have and not pass it on. That's a shame, and it really it's not fair for us, and it's not fair for the next people. And to take those people under your wing all this week between, or the 2 weeks between our podcast or webcast, whatever you want to call them. I've been looking for this cartoon that Paul Coombs did, and it's the building of the wall, and it's the senior firefighter on the one side who's placing a brick, and he's got the younger firefighter, and the senior firefighter has the wing that goes around the younger firefighter. And as they're transitioning and they're passing everything over, and damned if I couldn't find it, but that's exactly what we have to do. Like you have to mentor, you have to build the trust, you have to train your replacement, you have to do all of that in order to keep going with what we're doing. I mean, we've been dealt a great fire service, and we owe it to the next generations to keep that going. So that I'm good. That's all I got. Thanks, Chief.
Thanks, Ben. And Willie Holt, Pearls of Wisdom. Final thoughts. Break it on.
Chief, it would be an understatement to say that
You're calling me Chief.
That's new, yeah. To say that it's an honor and privilege to talk to you gentlemen tonight, really. At the end of the day, I do the old pillow lay down test. At the end of the day, I lay my head down on my pillow and ask myself, am I doing the right thing, right? And when it comes to doing the right thing, that can be a multitude of things. Am I doing the right thing for my family, the family life, the firehouse balance that we're all constantly juggling, right? Or just the fire service in general. And when you do that constant evaluation of, are we passing along what we need to? Are we making sure that next level is at that fireman standard, right? We set that fireman standard when they come in. And luckily, I think, as time goes on, people are going to find mentors in their life, whether it's a crew, a a chief that you meet in Ocean City, Maryland, that is gonna give you a call one day and ask you to come talk to some fire service leaders. Those are opportunities that I never thought that I would have been afforded in my fire career. But luckily, things fell in place. And, again, I look at this note is that secret sauce, what that secret sauce is. And that was just for me surrounding myself by good mentors. Was there ups and downs as far as in my career that it affected me differently? Of course, but surrounding myself with a good mentor and, at some point just shutting up and listening and then being afforded and given the opportunity to teach and to have these conversations has put me where I need to be. And hopefully we can just keep passing that along. At the end of the day, history and generations repeat themselves, right? Smoothbore nozzles, fog nozzles, it's just going to keep repeating ourselves. So, and the next generation, we're going to have this conversation with the next generation. Now, those damn COVID-19 generation, they don't understand. They stayed every day inside their house, right? I mean, all joking aside, that's something that we're looking at, right? The new norm is going to be different. We have guys coming online right now that are obviously impacted by the things that are going on. So that's something that we're going to have to adjust towards. I never thought that I was going to have a conversation with a new guy and say, hey, we are normally a lot busier than this. Don't get this twisted. You're going to go on a lot more calls, people falling down and things like that. But just that constant evaluation of the times that are going on and dealing with them appropriately. Again, thank you very much. It's a blessing to be here, and it's a blessing to talk to all you fire service leaders.
Trevor, you're muted. Try that again. There you go.
So that looked like one of those old Japanese movies where my mouth was moving, but then the sound. Okay. But before I pass it on to Bobby Halton for the final thoughts on this, Will, you're absolutely right. And we have an obligation too, no matter where we are in the fire service, and this is part of that 360-degree leadership, is whether you've been in for 6 days, 6 months, 6 years, or 60 years, if you've been in 6 days longer than somebody, you have an obligation of leadership to the person coming up behind you. What have you learned so far? What can you pass along? So don't pigeonhole yourself in the titles and rank and everything else. The folks that I work with in my department, they work way outside of and Nick can attest to this, they work way outside of their job classification every single day. But, their title doesn't matter. What matters is the fact that they perform at a high level every single day and get the job done. And I rely on them. I can't be there 24 hours. They are, and they get that job done. So with that being said, I think this newer generation also, they want to know the why behind things, and that's not unreasonable. Where when I came up, if you asked a question, God forbid, well, why are you asking this? Just do as you're told, be seen and not heard. Well, in order to get behind the mission, support the mission, and be able to pass that information along to others, people need to know the why behind it. There's some great speakers out there. Simon Sinek's one of them who talks specifically about the why. There's other folks that I've read some things recently, and Chief Halton shared some stuff with us for other people who are looking into this particular area. But let people know why. If one of your people asks you why they're doing something, they're not questioning your authority. If you get that butt hurt that you feel that you can't be asked why somebody's doing something, or if one of the younger people comes up to you and questions you, there's a respectful way and manner to do it. They don't have to chap their lips on your ass to do it, by no means. But if they want to know, hey Chief, what's the why behind this? Take the time to explain it to them. They deserve that, because then they get behind the mission. They carry the flag, and not only do they carry the flag, they do it well, and they do it with vigor. They do it with enthusiasm, and they understand what the mission is about. So they can't do the what until they understand the why. So before I get on my soapbox, and I appreciate you guys going a little over tonight, because I guarantee we'd be here past midnight. My wife knows about firehouse time. If I say, hey, I'll call you back in 20 minutes, it's usually 2 hours later, so she understands the multiplier now. But Will, I'm sorry, did you have something?
Sure. Knowing the why you were talking about, that is, if we don't pass on the why, like the why generation, right? We could call it millennials, we could call it the next generation, the Y generation, because people are going to ask questions. And I just wanted to build on, and I'll do it really quick. I just wanted to build on is that why we have to answer the why is if we don't do that, those traditions are going to be lost. If we lose those traditions, the fire service is gone, right? So again, whether they learn this way or that way, if we can fill in the why we bring ice cream to a ride along or what have you, insert your great tradition, right? If we lose the why and we don't pass that along, we're going to lose it all, right? So that, I just no the why, right? Yeah.
Big country, Willie Holt. I tell you what, very, very profound words. You're absolutely right. So before we wrap this up, and I appreciate everybody spending the extra time. We usually hold this to about an hour, and we could go on for probably 6 more hours. Chief Halton, I know you've given up a lot of your time this evening, but I want to give you the final word on this before we wrap up. So, Bobby, please go with it.
So this helmet's close to 100 years old. It's kind of important to me. My great uncle died wearing this helmet. And he would be proud to work with any of you guys. He'd be proud to be on the line today. And I think that we can never lose sight of that. And I also think that one of the important things when we set standards, be careful about holding people to the standards that you set for yourself, because we're all so different and our skills are different. And remember that people are going through things in life. People get sick, their families get sick, their kids have problems. They might be having problems in their marriage. They might be dealing with an addiction, a mental health issue. Doesn't mean they're still not a great firefighter. So cut people slack, be kinder, try to be kinder. You know, sometimes we think that everybody sees the world we do, the way we do, and nothing could be further from the truth, because we all grew up in different times with different influences. So when you pick your mentors, don't be surprised when you find out they've got a pimple or a bad tick every now and then, and pick a bunch of them and just try to be a little more gentler with the folks that you feel are coming up short, because to somebody, we're all coming up short. You know what I mean? There's always a firefighter better than you are. And I'm reminded of that 15, 20 times an hour when I read some of the stuff that you folks put together and put out there. So I would just say, be careful about labels, be careful about standards. Back when I was a kid, they used to say, don't judge somebody till you've walked a mile in his shoes. So, oftentimes when you see one of our folks having a struggle and they just seem like they're tired at work all the time, and then you find out that their kid is really sick, or their mom is sick, or their wife is dealing with an addiction problem, and then you feel like a jackass for, you know what I mean? And I've done that, and you're going to do it. But it doesn't mean we shouldn't, as Will said, shoot for the moon. And I think in our hearts we all do every day. But life is a struggle, and sometimes that struggle gets pretty sporty. And I think we just need to always keep that in the back of our head. And if we can always remember that we should never, ever do anything that would embarrass those that went before us who lost their lives wearing one of these. And if we go that way, we can never go wrong. And thank you for having me. I love you guys. This was a tremendous privilege. I'll hold my water cup high. That's all they'll give us here in the home. The people in the home, because otherwise we soil our garments and we get upset. So, but it was nice seeing you, kid. And it is fun to be on a show with guys younger than my children, which is wow. You guys are considerably younger than my children. So you got that going for you.
Yeah, we appreciate everybody being on and spending the extra time with us tonight. Like I say, we usually hold this to about an hour, and we can go on forever and ever. But thank all of you so much. I'll defer to Bobby McGee. One of the things Bobby always has those pearls of wisdom he throws out, and like Chief Halton said, it's about our brothers, it's about our sisters, and it's about the people we serve. Because one of the things I know Bobby McGee teaches a lot is it's not so much focusing on us internally, which we do quite a bit, which we should, but also about that 4-year-old kid at the end of the hallway in the flannel Spider-Man pajamas. Are we there for that? Are we there for that name at the top of the turnout, the back of the turnout coat, or the bottom of the turnout coat? So we have a great group of people. If you asked me probably 10 years ago if I had faith and belief in the next generation of the fire service, I would have said, no, you're all worthless and weak. And now I don't feel that way. And believe me, I'm a stubborn person, and it takes a little bit to turn the bow of the ship for me. But I look at people like the Nik Kotocavages and the Will Holts and the Ben Waples and the countless people, the Rob Framptons that we had on the other week, and also some of the senior folks that have brought us up. And you said it very well. We owe it to the generations before us to uphold them, what they've given to us, and pass this on. So instead of creating the divisions in the fire service, we need to find the common ground and pass along the great information, because I'm not too much further behind than Chief Halton. I think my medication and my mint jello should be coming around on the cart here shortly. And so with that being said, Ben Waples, since you're the master of ceremonies, I'll pitch it to you for the closure. But again, thank you all so much for each one of the panelists for spending your night with us and putting extra time, even though we lied to you and told you it's going to be an hour. And thank you for all those who've tuned in tonight. We hope you get a little bit out of it, and we'll talk more about these subjects later on. But love you guys. Nothing but respect. Ben, take it away.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, everybody. One more time. Again, a wonderful show. Like Trevor said, we usually go about an hour. We're at an hour, almost 40 now. So just to wrap this up, if you guys look across the bottom, we got that little ticker. So there's our website, stbtraining.com, Facebook. I'm going to say it, and I know Chief Halton's not going to like it. There's the Twitter handle, so we all know his feelings on that. And then our email address. So if you guys have any questions, you want to reach out to us, please do. The other thing that's not listed on there is our Instagram, which is relatively new. It's the same as the Twitter, is @StrikeTheBoxHot. So please reach out to us. Let us know if you got an idea for us to talk about. And if you want to join us, we'd love to have you. Thanks again. Look for us 2 weeks from tonight for Thirsty Thursday number 7. So thank you again, everybody. Have a wonderful evening. And we truly appreciate everything that you guys have done for us.
Salute.
Good night, fellas. God bless.
God bless. Thank you.